Okay, we are back with our recording. It seems I got cut off, so I apologize for that. I may have to try to join them together or um, try to put a new one together. So I'll keep recording. Thank you for those who are still listening. So we get to verse 10, and this is the part we want to look at where it says, I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven. And this word watcher is very interesting. It shows up here in verse 10 that this watcher is a wakeful one, an angel. And so what we wanted to investigate is what is this watcher? Some of you may have heard this term used. You'll find that there are movies created about this term, a watcher. There are books written about the watcher, a wakeful one. And so as we look at this, something very, very interesting comes up. Going to the site for creation research, um, they call the Watchers are a group of angels that are mentioned in the Bible in Daniel chapter 4, verse 13, 17, and 23. And sometimes they're called fallen angels. It says that they're interested in events that happen to people upon the earth. And with these watchers, um, what does the Bible say about it, and where else do they show up? What's also interesting is it gives a reference to the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees. And so, what I want to take you on is a little journey here. Um, to this understanding. Many of you may have heard of these extra books, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilee, and what's somewhat controversial is whether they are something that we should be reading today, something that people should be following. And some will say, yes, we should be reading them. Some will say, no, we shouldn't be reading them. But what we do see is that they are out there. Here's the Book of Enoch that you can download. I have read through it. Again, some things are quite unique. Some things are quite strange. Other things are very much similar in the way they read from the Bible as we know it. What we can't answer is, where they came from. We don't know how they were preserved through time. We don't know if the copies that we currently have at our disposal are the same ones that were popular at Jesus's time. But what we do know is they were popular at one time and they were read by the people. They were read by the early church, especially this book of Enoch. The book of Enoch, and I will bring up a copy of this here, was read quite a bit by the early church. Here is the Book of Watchers, the Book of Enoch, and it shows this term that's being referenced here by the sages who wrote about the Book of Daniel about the Watchers. The other thing that comes to play is that this book of Enoch was referenced in the Bible in the New Testament. It's referenced in the book of Jude. Jude has one chapter, and verse 14 makes a reference to Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these sayings. Now, Enoch was a very intriguing character. It says here in Genesis chapter 5, verse 24, that Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him, which means that he was translated, he was taken from this earth, he did not see death. And so that makes him a very interesting figure. There's only one other person in the Bible who is reported to not have died, and that is Elijah, when he was carried up in this whirlwind. And you will find in the book of Revelation that these two men come back in the book of Revelation and have a time where they are teaching, prophesying, and then they die. So, again, many will feel this fulfills the verse where it says that, it's appointed unto man once to die and then the judgment. So, again, very interesting things. But Enoch is talked about here as someone who pleased God and God took him. So in Jude chapter 1, we see that Enoch is referenced. So it means that the writer of Jude knew about the book of Enoch, knew about the stories of Enoch. And I've heard, different opinions on, well, they just took this verse out and this was the only one that was, you know, um, ordained by God to be remembered and to be transmitted to us for us to read. I've heard various ways it's explained. The point is that back at the time when the Bible was written, there were no restrictions, nothing called canonization of what books to read and what books you shouldn't read, and they were free to read these, and they knew these, and they used their own discretion as to what they would apply and what they would not apply. And so I'm going to leave it at that and leave it to your own discretion. I just wanted you to be aware that these books exist. Some people are very much in favor of them. Some people stay away from them. But we do see here for sure that the writer of Jude knew about the book of Enoch, quoted from the book of Enoch, felt that this passage here was extremely important and accurate and reliable, and so he included it in the book of Jude. And as we go back to the book of Enoch and just scroll down a little bit, we're going to see this passage here in verse 9 of the book of Enoch. And it says pretty much exactly, and again, this is English, not looking back at the Hebrew or the Aramaic, and it just says his myriads of holy one to execute judgment, to destroy the wicked, convict humanity of all the wicked deeds they have done. It's a very hard to swallow type of verse, but it fits with the book of Jude, and the writer of Jude definitely quoted from this book of Enoch here. And so, again, that's very, very interesting. You'll see the book of Enoch as we had shown here. You can look it up, you can download it. There's another one here that's mentioned is the book of Jubilees. And so the book of Jubilees is more of a Hebrew Jewish book where it talks about, calls it the little Genesis. It fills in the reader's mind about things in Genesis that maybe aren't covered in the book of Genesis that we know. Again, our church, our culture here does not so much accept it, but if you would be born here looking at this, if you would be born in Ethiopia, and belong to this Orthodox church, you would fully accept the Book of Jubilees. It's also accepted in many of the Eastern Orthodox, the Catholic and Protestant churches call it the pseudo pedigrapha, means it's extra books, and some are canonized, which is a fancy word for saying church accepted, and others are not. So again, knowing that these books were popular, were read at one time or another, it's up to us whether we want to pursue them and look at them, but they are there and you may have heard about it. And so I wanted to give you that little bit of explanation. So as going back to um, this watcher here, it talks about these watchers, these angels. And again, angels have been a subject of much fascination in the Bible. There are studies on angels. Are topics of, okay, how many angels are there? Does everyone have an angel? In the book of, I believe, Hebrews, it talks about our what we might think of as a guardian angel that they were given unto the heirs of salvation, each one of us. And so we don't know. I've never seen one. I've never personally come across anything that might tell me that an angel is in my presence, but we do know they are figures throughout the Bible. And the Jewish culture spends a lot more time investigating and deriving some of the angels and especially the names for the angels. We know the angel Gabriel and we know the angel Michael. The Jewish culture has assigned other names for what they feel are other prominent angels as they see them or as they've experienced experienced them or as they're experienced in other Jewish literature. And so in the book of Daniel, we are experiencing things that are quite unique, quite different from what maybe we see in other passages of scriptures. And so the watchers, the angels, are prominent. We'll see that this is also something that is common to other religions and other cultures, because remember, this is Nebuchadnezzar. He's not Jewish, he is a pagan person. And so, in his culture, in his pagan religion, they also had these watchers and these angels. He calls them a holy one, and came down to speak to him. So, that's where we're going to leave off today at the end of verse 11. We'll come back next week and find out, what did this watcher say to him? What was the judgment that was prophesied about Nebuchadnezzar, and what impact did it have on his life? So thank you so much for being a part of this study. Pray it's been a blessing to you, and look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.